My daughter-in-law called on a Friday night and didn't bother saying hello. She didn't ask how my week was or if I had eaten dinner. She simply told me I would babysit my grandson tomorrow because she said so. My name is Jacqueline Harper. I am 65, a widow, and a retired high school English teacher. Since my husband passed away 3 years ago, I had slowly fallen into a routine I never agreed to. My son David and his wife Sarah had turned my quiet retirement into an on-demand childcare service. For over a year, my schedule was entirely dictated by Sarah's yoga classes, brunch dates, and sudden work emergencies. The clock on my kitchen wall read 8:15 p.m. when the phone rang. I was sitting at my table sipping peppermint tea and reading a gardening catalog. "Jacqueline, I need you here by 8 a.m. sharp tomorrow," Sarah commanded over the speaker, her voice rushed and sharp. "David and I are going to a wine tasting in the valley. Leo's breakfast is in the fridge. Don't let him watch TV before noon." I looked at the gardening catalog. I had plans to visit a local nursery with my friend Martha in the morning. I took a slow breath. "I can't make it tomorrow, Sarah," I replied evenly. "I have plans." The line went dead quiet 3 seconds. Then Sarah scoffed. "Plans? What plans could you possibly have? You sit at home all day. Cancel them. You'll babysit because I said so. I'm his mother, and I make the rules for this family. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't apologize. I didn't explain about the nursery or Martha." "You do make the rules for your son," I answered. "But you do not make the rules for my weekend. The answer is no." I tapped the red button, ended the call, and put my phone on silent. I knew exactly who would be standing on my porch the next morning. At 7:30 a.m. on Saturday, the doorbell rang. I was already dressed, drinking black coffee, and waiting. I opened the door to find David standing there alone. He looked down at his shoes, shifting his weight from left to right. My son had always been easily influenced, preferring to absorb Sarah's demands rather than deal with a single moment of conflict in his own marriage. "Mom?" David sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Come on. Sarah is throwing a fit. You know how she gets when her plans are ruined. It's just one day." I leaned against the doorframe, studying him. "It's never just one day, David. It's every weekend. It's Tuesday afternoons. It's whenever Sarah feels like offloading her responsibilities without asking my permission." "We let you spend time with Leo," he muttered, finally looking up. "Most grandmothers would be thrilled. I am thrilled to see my grandson. I am not thrilled to be treated like an unpaid employee who is expected to clock in on command." I took a sip of my coffee. "If Sarah wants to go wine tasting, she can hire a sitter. They charge $20 an hour." David groaned. "We can't afford that, Mom. You know things are tight right now." I raised an eyebrow. Things were supposedly tight, yet they were heading to an expensive vineyard. Furthermore, I had been transferring $500 to David's account every month to help cover Leo's preschool tuition. I also regularly bought their groceries when I babysat, stocking their fridge with organic fruit and expensive meats, because Sarah refused to eat anything else. "Then I suggest you stay home," I told him calmly. "Sarah says if you don't help us today, we might need to take a break from visiting for a while." David warned, echoing his wife's exact phrasing. I nodded slowly. "If that is her choice, I understand. Tell her I hope she enjoys the wine." I closed the door, leaving him standing on the porch. The guilt trip was officially over. For the next 2 weeks, my phone did not ring. Sarah was deploying her favorite tactic, the silent treatment. She expected me to crumble, to feel the crushing weight of isolation, and to show up at her front door with an apology and a freshly baked pie, begging to see my grandson. She severely miscalculated. Instead of sitting by the phone, I joined a morning walking club at the community center. I bought the expensive rose bushes I had been eyeing and spent my afternoons planting them in the backyard. I went to the movies in the middle of the day. Without the constant drain of driving across town, buying their groceries, and cleaning up their kitchen, while Leo napped my bank account, and my energy levels looked remarkably healthy. On a Thursday afternoon, I was having lunch with Martha at a small bistro downtown. "I haven't seen David's car in your driveway lately," Martha noted, slicing into her quiche. "Sarah is punishing me." I smiled, taking a bite of my salad. "I refused to babysit on demand." Martha chuckled. "Well, you look more rested than you have in a year. Just be careful, Jacqueline. People who are used to taking don't usually give up that easily." She was right. The silence wasn't a surrender. It was a strategy. Sarah was waiting for me to break. When I didn't, I knew she would escalate. That evening, I returned home and noticed something odd. The side gate to my backyard was unlatched. I walked into the kitchen and saw that my pantry door was wide open. 2 large boxes of expensive paper towels and a bulk bag of coffee beans were missing. David still had a spare key to my house. They were using my home as a free grocery store while actively ignoring me. It was a small, arrogant boundary violation, but it was the only push I needed to take my next step. I didn't call David to yell at him. I didn't send Sarah an angry text message. Arguing with them only provided fuel for Sarah's victim narrative. Instead, at 8:00 a.m. the next morning, I called a local locksmith. By 10:00 a.m., the deadbolts on my front door, back door, and garage entrance were completely replaced. The heavy, satisfying click of the new locks felt like a physical boundary being drawn around my life. My home was my sanctuary, not a supply closet for a couple who couldn't be bothered to respect me. Later that afternoon, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I logged into my online banking portal. For 14 months, I had a recurring automatic transfer set up $500 on the first of every month to David's checking account labeled Leo's Preschool. I had never actually seen a tuition bill. I just trusted my son when he said preschool was drowning them financially. After the pantry incident, my trust was completely gone. I paused the transfer. I didn't cancel it outright yet. I simply put a hold on the transaction scheduled for the upcoming Tuesday. Saturday morning arrived with heavy rain. I was sitting in my armchair reading a novel when I heard the unmistakable sound of a car pulling into my driveway. I glanced out the front window. It was Sarah's silver SUV. David jumped out, holding his jacket over Leo's head to block the rain. He ran up the porch steps. I heard the metal scraping of a key sliding into the front door. He jiggled it. He pushed. He tried turning it to the left, then the right. I sat perfectly still in my chair, listening to the metallic clicks. "It's stuck!" David yelled over the rain to Sarah, who was rolling down her car window. I marked my page in my book, stood up, and walked slowly toward the entryway. The real test was about to begin. I opened the door just as David was about to slam his shoulder against the wood. He stumbled forward, catching his balance while little Leo hugged his legs. "Mom, what is wrong with your lock?" David gasped, wiping rain from his forehead. "Nothing is wrong with it," I replied, looking down at my sweet grandson and offering him a warm smile. "It's brand new." Sarah turned off the car engine and marched up the porch steps holding an umbrella. She glared at me, her jaw tight. "You changed the locks without telling us." "It's my house, Sarah. I don't need to announce my home maintenance schedule," I answered casually. "We need you to watch Leo," she demanded, ignoring my response. "David's parents-in-law. My parents are visiting and we are taking them out for a nice lunch. Leo gets too fussy at restaurants. I am not available today," I stated, not moving from the center of the doorway. Sarah scoffed, crossing her arms. "We're already here, Jacqueline. We drove 20 minutes in the rain. Take him." "No." The word hung in the damp air. Sarah blinked, genuinely shocked that her physical presence hadn't intimidated me into compliance. She looked at David, expecting him to fix it. "Mom, please," David whispered. "Her parents are waiting." "Then you should head back so you aren't late," I suggested. "Leo is a wonderful boy. I'm sure your parents would love to have lunch with their grandson. Have a safe drive." "If you shut this door," Sarah hissed, stepping closer, "you can forget about coming to our house for Thanksgiving. I will uninvite you right now. You'll sit here all by yourself." She expected me to panic. Thanksgiving was my favorite holiday. I usually cooked the turkey, bought all the side dishes, and spent 3 days cleaning their kitchen beforehand. "Okay," I agreed smoothly. "I accept. Goodbye, Sarah. I love you, Leo." I closed the door firmly until the new deadbolt clicked into place. By Tuesday, the reality of my Thanksgiving absence had clearly set in at their house. I received a text from David around noon. "Mom, Sarah is really stressed about the turkey. Are you sure you can't just apologize so we can move past this? We really need your recipes." I didn't reply. They didn't miss me. They missed their caterer. Instead of wallowing, I called Martha. She and her husband were driving up to a rented cabin in the mountains for the holiday weekend, and they had an extra guest room. I asked if I could join them. Martha enthusiastically agreed. I transferred half the rental cost to her and started packing a warm sweater and a good book. On Wednesday morning, my phone rang. It was the director of Leo's preschool, Mrs. Higgins. I had listed myself as an emergency contact a year ago. "Mrs. Harper, I'm so sorry to bother you," she began politely. "We can't reach David or Sarah. Leo is perfectly fine, but we have a policy regarding past due accounts. He cannot attend class tomorrow unless the October and November balances are cleared." I frowned, gripping the kitchen counter. "Past due, but they pay tuition on the first of the month." "I'm afraid not." Mrs. Higgins sighed. "They dropped him down to 2 days a week back in August, and we haven't received a payment in over 60 days. My stomach turned. I had been sending David $500 every single month. If Leo was only going 2 days a week, the tuition was barely $300. Where was the rest of my money going? "Thank you, Mrs. Higgins. I will handle it," I promised. I hung up, walked into my home office, and pulled up my bank statements. I cross-referenced the dates. The money wasn't going to a child's education. My son and his wife had been using my monthly transfers to fund something else entirely. It was time to cut the cord completely. I drove straight to the bank. Sitting across from a branch manager, I officially canceled the recurring monthly transfer to David's account. I didn't leave it on hold. I deleted the pathway entirely. Next, I opened a separate savings account, naming it the Leo Fund. I decided I would put that money aside for my grandson's future, untouched by his parents' irresponsible hands. Leaving the bank, I drove to the preschool. I walked into Mrs. Higgins's office and wrote a check to cover Leo's past due balance, ensuring my grandson wouldn't be embarrassed or kicked out. "Moving forward, I will pay for his 2 days a week directly to the school," I informed her, signing the paperwork. "Do not accept any billing instructions from David or Sarah. The account is under my name now." She smiled gratefully. "Understood, Mrs. Harper." I felt a profound sense of lightness as I walked back to my car. For over a year, Sarah had manipulated my love for Leo to extract free labor, free groceries, and free cash. She thought she was running a clever operation, treating me like a naive old woman who was too afraid of loneliness to fight back. Thursday arrived, the first of the month. I was sitting on the balcony of Martha's mountain cabin, watching the morning mist roll over the pine trees, holding a mug of hot cider. My phone buzzed on the wooden table. It was David, then a text from Sarah, then another call from David. "Mom, did your bank make a mistake? The transfer didn't go through. Jacqueline, my car lease payment bounced this morning because your money wasn't in the account. Fix this immediately." I stared at Sarah's text. A car lease. My money intended for my grandson's education was paying for the luxury SUV she drove into my driveway every time she demanded I babysit. I took a slow sip of my cider, enjoying the crisp mountain air. I didn't type a single word in response. I returned from the mountain cabin on Sunday afternoon feeling completely refreshed. I was unpacking my small suitcase in the bedroom when I heard heavy footsteps marching up my front porch, followed by aggressive, rapid knocking. I took my time hanging up my coat before walking to the door. I opened it to find Sarah and David standing there. Sarah's face was flushed red with anger, her designer handbag clutched tightly under her arm. David looked pale and exhausted. "Where have you been?" Sarah snapped, pushing past me into the hallway without an invitation. "You ignored our calls for 4 days. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it was to get a decline notice at the dealership?" "I was on vacation," I answered, leaving the front door wide open. "And the dealership is not my concern." "You cut off the preschool money," David blurted out, stepping inside. "Mom, why would you do that without telling us?" I looked directly at my son. "I didn't cut off the preschool money, David. I paid Leo's past due balance in full on Wednesday. I also arranged to pay his tuition directly to the school from now on." Sarah froze her eyes, darting nervously toward David. "Mrs. Higgins informed me that Leo only goes 2 days a week." I continued, my voice steady and completely empty of anger. "Which means the $500 I sent you every month was paying for Sarah's car lease. I am not financing your lifestyle anymore." "You promised us that money," Sarah yelled, trying to regain the upper hand. "You can't just take it away. We budgeted around it. You are ruining our finances just because you're throwing a tantrum over babysitting." "I am not throwing a tantrum." I smiled softly. "I am simply closing my wallet. If you want to drive a luxury car, Sarah, you will have to pay for it yourself. Now I have laundry to do. Please leave my house." Sarah stared at me, her mouth slightly open. She was completely out of ammunition. She couldn't threaten to withhold Leo because I had already proven I could walk away. She couldn't use the house key because the locks were changed. She couldn't manipulate the money because I had routed it directly to the school. Every string she had used to control me was severed cleanly. "You're being completely unreasonable." She spat, though her voice shook slightly. "Families are supposed to help each other." "Help is requested, Sarah. Subservience is demanded. I will gladly help you, but I will never work for you." I gestured toward the open door. "David, please take your wife home. You both have a lot of budgeting to figure out." David looked at me, a profound sadness in his eyes. For a brief second, I thought he might argue, but he simply nodded. He finally saw the reality of what they had done. They had treated my kindness as a weakness, and they had milked it dry. "Come on, Sarah," David muttered, grabbing her arm. "Let's go." "I'm not bringing Leo here again." She threatened a desperate final attempt to assert dominance. "That is your choice," I agreed calmly. "But remember, I am the one paying his tuition now. If you want to keep him home, you'll have to explain that to him." She practically stomped down the porch steps. David offered me a quiet, shameful apology before following her to the car. I watched them back out of the driveway. I didn't feel heartbroken or guilty. I felt incredibly light. I walked back inside, closed the heavy front door, and locked the new deadbolt with a satisfying click. The house was quiet, peaceful, and entirely mine. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, and pulled out my gardening catalog. I had a whole backyard to design and plenty of time to do it. 5 months have passed since I changed the locks and stopped the bank transfers. The transition wasn't completely smooth. There were a few weeks of tense silence, followed by a clumsy attempt from David to ask for a loan to cover a credit card bill. I declined, simply telling him that I believed in their ability to manage their own adult responsibilities. Eventually, reality forced them to adjust. Sarah had to trade in her luxury SUV for a standard sensible sedan to lower her monthly payments. They stopped going to wine tastings every weekend because they had to pay a neighborhood teenager to babysit. Once they realized my boundaries were made of concrete, their behavior changed. I now see Leo every Sunday morning. David drives him over at 9:00 a.m. sharp. He knocks on the door, waits for me to answer, and speaks to me with genuine respect. Sometimes Sarah comes along. She is much quieter now. There are no more demands, no more chalkboard schedules, and no more assuming my house is a free grocery store. Last Sunday, I was sitting on the floor with Leo helping him build a tall tower out of wooden blocks. Sarah stood in the entryway holding her purse. She hesitated before speaking. "Thank you for watching him today, Jacqueline. We really appreciate it." "You're welcome, Sarah," I replied, placing a block on the tower. "Pick him up at 1 o'clock. "We will," she promised, closing the door gently behind her. Setting a boundary didn't destroy my family. It saved me from resentment, and it forced my son and his wife to grow up. I don't rescue them anymore. And because of that, our relationship is finally based on reality instead of exploitation. My home is my sanctuary. My money is secure. And when Leo laughs as his wooden tower crashes to the floor, I get to enjoy the moment completely. Not as a tired, unpaid servant, but simply as a grandmother.